Hi everyone, welcome to another Broken Blitz review. This is for Meadow by Rebel Studios, and this is a 95% complete pre-retail release version of the game. So I have played 95% of the content that this game has to offer. There's a couple of minor things that it doesn't have, but in terms of components and artwork, it's pretty much complete, and I have played this both solo and multiplayer, so this is a full review. In Meadow, you are building up a tableau display in front of you of a neighbouring countryside. You have cards that will be littered all over this board, and they will come from 3 different piles, of which you get these really cool deck holders in order to hold the cards. More on that a bit later. But you'll have them on this board, and what you do is that you acquire them with the use of these tiles. These tiles are numbered 1 to 4, along with a wild one, depending on player count. And they have 2 things pictured on them. They have not only a number with play a card symbol at the top, but they also have a special action at the bottom, which is used if you want to instead place it on this campfire board. They are multi-sided, and there's 2 of them. They're based on player count. And the idea is that it bears a big similarity to another game I've talked about in my collection called Quadropolis. That was a city building game where you used architect tiles on this grid in order to select what tile it was you were taking for your city. Well, this works on very much a similar prospect. You've got these etches around the side of the board, and you basically slot your tile into one of those etches, and it will tell you what position in the grid you take the card from. So, for example, let's put a few cards down here in the middle, and I decide I'm going to play my, if I got a good example, my 3. So I've got my 3, put it in this etch, I go 1, 2, 3, take the card, and then I can play it or a different card from my hand into my display. Your display consists of the meadow itself, as well as what they call surrounding areas. They are essentially just different types of cards with different prerequisites. But when you take the cards, in order to play them, they have symbology on the top left. You have to play the card as long as you have the prerequisite symbols in your meadow. So for example here, I need a leaf, which is a type of terrain. I need a worm. So as long as I've got both of those somewhere showing in my tableau, I can play this. But the catch is that when you play these, they overlap other cards that you had the prerequisites for. So for example, I decide I'm going to play this one, fine. I've just covered up the worm symbol because you've got to play it on one of the legal ones there, and by doing so, I no longer have a worm symbol, but now I have a butterfly symbol. So maybe when I pick up a different card, like say, I don't have a good example there, but let's just go for argument's sake, this flower. Well, this one has the butterfly symbol as a prerequisite, so I can play it on top of that. Well, now I don't have the butterfly symbol, I now have a flower symbol, and you get what I'm talking about. Basically, it's all about getting the symbols that allow you to play other cards, and as you go through the game, a different deck will appear with some higher VP cards. But you are talking essentially mostly between 1 and 3 victory points per card, and the occasional 4s that pop out. The special actions you can do on the campfire board are pretty straightforward. One allows you to play 2 cards at once, another allows you to draw from the deck, select one and put the rest back, another one allows you to grab one from anywhere in the tableau. They're fairly standard, simple actions. So my thoughts on Meadow are kind of a mixed bag, but let's tackle one of the best things about this game already. Wow, is this game beautiful. This is such a nice, tranquil, pleasant game to play. The cover is already very nice with this very nice little creature on the top. I'm not going to say exactly what it is because I know I'll get it wrong because I'm an idiot. But, you've got this very nice artwork on the front done by Miss Carolina Kiak. I can't pronounce it. It says...
We have to wait for Vegeta and Trunks to come out of the hypertonic lion tamer.
That one was on purpose.
I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name here, but the art in this is lovely. Absolutely lovely. Every single card in this game is unique artwork. Yes, there's a little repetition with some of the what they call the grounds cards, which is the terrain symbols. The top half of the card will be recycled and the bottom bit will be unique, but you cover that very quickly with the cards as you go through the columns, so that's a minor thing. But all these other ones are completely unique. This is a flying squirrel, totally unique picture. This is a particular breed of butterfly. Here's another type of butterfly. Here's a snail. Here's a chinchilla thing. Here's another bug. Here's a Venus flytrap. Here's a spider. Why is there a spider in this game? I hate spiders. Granted, I want to get the card for points, but then I want to cover it up pretty quickly. And the component quality is solid as well. I mean, the boards are very nice and thick and chunky. They've got the etches around the side for where you put these tiles. These tiles themselves are pretty thick wooden tiles as well, with a very clear graphic design on them. And I've mentioned the deck boxes. They give you 4 for some bizarre reason, even though technically, yes, there's 4 decks, but you only have 3 out at a time, so I don't know why you need a 4th, but whatever. I mean, they're really solid wooden deck holders, and most games with decks of cards don't give you these things. These are included in the box, they're easy to assemble, they give you directions, and believe me, if you're deciding I need to look at the top 3 cards and put 2 at the bottom, it's a lot easier to do it when you've got a deck holder to take the deck out of, and they are raised, so they're not like flush with the table. But when you've got 3 of these on this board, along with all the cards on the display in your meadows, it really just creates a very picturesque landscape, which, let's face it, is the theme of the game. But if you want to go an extra step into the immersion, this card index is fantastic. There's no abilities on these creatures, but essentially every single one is unique, and this index contains the English name, the Latin name, and a brief description of what the creature is. And it's purely there for your own trivia or knowledge. That's it. But if you're into this kind of thing, like if you're into little creatures and nature and flora and that kind of thing, you'll have a field day just reading all of these. Turns are pretty quick in this game. You've got to put a tile down, take a card, put it in your meadow if you want it, and that's kind of your turn. It's even quicker if you do the campfire bit, because you're literally just deciding I'll take a card or play 2 cards at once. Turns will come back round to you even in a 4-player game, usually pretty fast, although there is a bit of a caveat with that. This game does have the potential for a bit of analysis paralysis, because when you're putting these tiles around the edge of this board and taking cards, you can't go to a place that's already been taken. So you're getting blocked by other players, and particularly if you're playing this in a 4-player game, you're going to get blocked quite often. Yes, the campfire board scales with player count, but this doesn't. You know, you essentially get 1 less tile to work with, but even with 1 less tile, that's going to get blocked up very quickly. So you need to have like plan A, plan B, plan C in order to decide, oh, what can I do? And if someone does block you from getting a card you really, really want and you've got no other way of getting it, you've then got to reassess your symbology in your meadow, look at there again and go, well, I could get that instead, I could get that instead. So there is potential for some turns to take longer than they should, but for the most part, they tend to come back around fairly quick. The rulebook itself is pretty easy to learn. This is slightly smaller than the actual rulebook is going to be. It's going to be slightly bigger, so if it's any bigger, it's fine. But to be honest, I had no trouble reading this. The rules are very easy to interpret. There's a lot of pictorial examples in here for how to play cards, which you need to have ingrained in your system in order to play this. But it gives you everything you need to know in terms of preparation for the game, the actions, the game setup for multiple player accounts, the component list, solo mode, and a very good overview on the back of how the different things work. Honestly, I had no trouble learning the game from this, so if they're going to make it bigger font or bigger size, then that's only a plus point, really. And I do like the selection of your action with these tiles. It works brilliantly in Quadropolis, and it works the same way here. Having the grid and thinking, well, I need that card. Well, I could approach it with a 2 from here, a 3 from there maybe, or I could go for this one. Well, let's see, a 1 on that side. Oh, he's blocked me. Or, well, maybe I can, hang on, I've got my 4 still. I can go there. But it's 1 use per round. So I could be sitting here with my 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you've also got to make the decision not only of whether it's going to go on the main board or the campfire board, because that's a different thing entirely, but you got to decide which order you're going to do them in, because I might decide, well, I'll use my 2 for that one, and then later on another card comes up and you're like, oh, I could have got that if I had my 2 still. Can I get it with a 1 or a 4 somehow? I don't know. And your choices get more limited as the round goes on, so, you know, being first in a round is quite handy. But I like the idea that you've got essentially a dual use for these tokens, and I like the idea, similar to Quadropolis, that as you go through the round, your choices get more limited. So for the most part, pretty positive, but I do have a few negatives with the game as well. Each game does feel quite samey as you do. This one doesn't allow for a ton of replay value. Not to say that you're going to get bored with the game too soon. No, it's very nice and pleasant, but there's not really any overarching like multi-pass strategy that you can follow with this. You're gaining cards and gaining the symbols. You are reacting to what comes out and how you build your meadow. You can't say I'm going to focus on the butterflies or focus on buildings, and you can't really say I'm going to focus on discovery cards rather than the meadow. You are reacting to what comes out. So this is a very tactical based game, but it does mean that every game essentially plays out the same. You get some ground cards, you then build on top of them with whatever card you can hopefully buy, and you decide every now and again whether you're going to go into those surrounding area tiles. And even then, I kind of find the surrounding area cards to be a bit weird, because they vary in points, but they get you the same amount of points really as a typical creature card. But in order to get those cards, you have to go out of your way to put an action tile on the campfire board to get these road tiles. So I could just focus on this by collecting a bunch of symbols, or I have to go out of my way to get a park tile before I can put the surrounding area card down, which I've got to acquire from the board anyway, and then be able to put discovery cards on it. And I also had some issues with the solo mode in this. The solo mode is fine, there's very minimal upkeep in it, but all you essentially do is set up the game as normal and you have the AI player. You've got a separate tile that you put out and you shuffle all of these movement, like these turn tiles that you're not using for the other players, and you just put them in a stack. And based on the tile for the solo mode, it's got a key for green on the left, red on the right, you know, at random. And you basically just turn over a tile, and then based on that, you put it on the board, you take the card and you put it into a deck for the AI. And that's literally it. So the AI just builds up this whopping great big deck of cards by the end of the game. But it's incredibly hard to beat the AI because of that. Because bear in mind, you've got to go out of your way to get the symbols in order to get the cards. And this could be for a 2-3 victory point card. If you want to get a 4 VP card, you better make certain you've got those symbols for it. Whereas the AI can literally just go, I turn over a 2, it goes there, and oh, it's a 4 VP card for the AI. How lovely. And the AI doesn't care about prerequisites. So the AI literally is getting points after points after points every turn for doing diddly squat, but you feel it's very much luck of the draw as to how that happens. You have gold tiles that you can get, which if you can get the matching symbols, you can get some bonus points. If you don't get those in the solo mode, you will lose, full stop. But whether you can get those symbols depends entirely on whether they come out of the deck. And I could tell that something was a bit off because in the rulebook, it's very much a beat the AI and see how well you did. But in the first game, I beat the AI 56 to 55. That was my score. If I go to the solo scoring table, mid-50s is the second highest tier you can get in terms of you've done fantastically. The upper tier is 60 plus. The lowest tier is less than 39. I don't think it's physically possible for the AI to score 40 or less points in this game. They didn't have to work very hard to get to 55, and that's the second highest tier. So if you get somewhere in the 40s, early 40s or low 30s, not only, you're not going to beat the AI full stop, let alone care what you get on the solo scoring table.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
So overall, Meadow is a very nice, pleasant game. It has similarities to Quadropolis as to how it works mechanically. As to which one I prefer, that's a different story. They both use the same mechanic for selecting cards or tiles, whatever you want to do. The city building one has a little bit more meat to it though. This one is definitely much more simplistic. I'd be hard pressed to say which one I prefer, to be honest. Both of them are well produced, both of them look good, both of them have fairly limited replay value, although I would argue maybe Quadropolis has a bit more replay value because you can put the expert tiles in there, but both are decent games. I'd say this one probably looks better just because of the very nice artwork. You know, it is very beautiful, and I love the fact that it's unique with the card index. So I can't really say which one I like best. I think you're just going to have to pick your poison on that one. But Meadow is decent. It has a few flaws, but overall I would still give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's good, and I would give it a seal of endorsement. I think that if you're looking for a fairly simple tableau building game that's going to look very pleasant, that's going to appeal to a lot of people just by the visual aesthetics of it, then this is definitely one worth checking out. I just think that maybe the solo mode needs a bit of fixing here and there, and I maybe would have liked just kind of like a little bit of extra variety in what you were doing in terms of like path to victory. It all pretty much revolves around what symbols you've built up and whether the cards come out that facilitate being able to get those symbols. But overall, still a nice, pleasant game, and I recommend you give it a shot when it comes out. So that's it from me on this review. If you like what you see, then consider subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to check out the link in the description to zatu.co.uk. Use my 5% discount code to fill a gap on your shelf. There's plenty of games you can see in my collection. If any take your fancy, check out Zatu and make sure you've got a copy in your collection. That is, if you like the game, otherwise don't bother. But take care. Remember, as always, it's only a game. Bye for now.